Hello, I'm Jeff DeGraff, the Dean of Innovation, and today we're going to talk about how to greatly improve your brainstorming sessions. Not only increasing the number of creative ideas, but also the quality of those ideas by using what I call the 4F strategy. Now, we're going to take all of this research on creativity and what makes a person creative and a group creative, and I've boiled it down to what I think are the four most important elements: fluency, flexibility, freedom, and flow. So let's start with fluency, the most important. It turns out that more ideas are in fact better. Whoever said one good idea is better than 100 bad ideas probably didn't invent very much. And the reason a lot of ideas are better is it overwhelms our inner critics and it produces these points of departure. In a sense, it lets some silly ideas in. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to set an idea quota. So let's say 100 ideas in 15 minutes. That will get momentum and it will make us go a little bit faster than we can criticize these ideas. A great example of this is Google does this in their design sprints. At the very beginning, they create a lot of ideas, and those ideas at the very end yield a few really great ideas for software development. It's like a funnel. So you have to put a lot in at the top in order to get something really interesting out at the end. Now, the second F is flexibility, and that simply means moving ideas from one domain to another domain. And the reason this works is what your mind naturally does is it looks to assimilate and accommodate things. It looks to put things together that it knows how to put together. So what we're doing is actually creating something called defamiliarization. We're trying to introduce two unfamiliar ideas together intentionally, and we're trying to get them to figure out how they go together. And the way we're going to introduce this into our brainstorming session is we're going to search and reapply outside of the domain where we're brainstorming. So if we're brainstorming something about cars, for example, we might pick an adjacent industry like aerospace. But let's say we're trying to radically change what a car does. We might look at an amusement park, or we might look at, underwater scuba diving or something that's a very different industry. And by taking these ideas that normally don't go together, we create new ideas. And a good example of this is the Mayo Clinic tried to improve patient satisfaction for years, and it had this insight that if it put its doctors in a really nice hotel like the Ritz-Carlton and immediately afterwards put them in a hospital bed, that they'd apply what they learned at the Ritz-Carlton in the hospital bed, and of course it worked, and it greatly improved patient satisfaction. Now, the third F is freedom. It's my favorite word. And freedom means being truly open-minded. And the way that we do this is we have to monitor our own inner judgment, our own voice of judgment, the things that we believe. And the term we use for this is dominant logic. Everybody has dominant logic. And rather than explaining what it means, just think about people and think about what they believe about religion or about politics. You've never been able to change anybody's mind, and they don't change your mind because it's dominant logic. We look for confirming feedback instead of disconfirming feedback. So what we have to do in our brainstorming session is introduce unorthodox ideas for our group. So if our group is from one culture, maybe we want to introduce them to a different culture. If our group has one view about the way the world should work or a particular law, we might want to introduce the opposite. Sometimes this is referred to as counter-attitudinal advocacy, and it's a fancy way of saying walk in someone else's shoes. And when you do that, you begin not only to see new ideas, you develop a new perspective on ideas, which is, of course, essential to new ideas. And it also incorporates these ideas that are unfamiliar to create hybrids again. And a great example of this is the comedy troupe Second City, which is famous for improvisation. If you're improvising and somebody says, well, no, that's not true, or they try and change what the setup is, it ends the skit. But if you say yes and, the skit continues. So this is yes and thinking that we're trying to incorporate into our group. Finally, the final F is flow. And flow, of course, has a wonderful ring to it. Flow is when we're feeling effortlessness and timelessness. Think about it when you're playing an instrument or playing a sport or you're drawing or writing or whatever it is you do. You go to nature. When it feels like time flies by and you're not working very hard, you're in a high energy state. So the final F is pay attention to when your group is in a high energy state. Are they morning people? Are they music people? So the music is playing. Do they like cool environment? Do they need to see the sunlight? Pay attention to when creativity emerges in the group, and don't try and force creativity. It's not creativity on demand. It's creativity when creativity demands it. And one of the great examples of this is Procter & Gamble, which is this amazing company that develops all these products, they have this thing called an innovation gym. And when people kind of get stuck and they need to get in a flow state, they take their group and they put them into innovation gym and they get everything the way they want it to be. They get a flow state and they have creative ideas. Now, putting it all together, fluency, flexibility, freedom, and flow, the 4S strategy. If you do these 4 Fs and you incorporate them into your brainstorming sessions, I promise you it will greatly increase the number of creative ideas you have, and it will greatly improve the quality of those ideas. This is Jeff DeGraff, the Dean of Innovation. Thanks.